Hello student, welcome to the lecture on basic concept of human anatomy and physiology. And after this lecture, we will be able to learn the following objectives. Explain the anatomy and physiology of human, describe the levels of organization, discuss about hematology, explain the integumentary system, define the epidermis and dermis. Let's start with the introduction. The human body works is based in many instances on the analysis of its anatomy. Hence, knowledge of the anatomy leads to a better understanding of function together with an appreciation of the outcomes and symptoms of dysfunction. The human being is a vertebrate, which means we have a bony, articulated, jointed endoskeleton that supports the body and grows as it grows. The spinal cord, which is dorsal in vertebrates, ventral in invertebrates, is surrounded by bony segments, the vertebrae, and the brain is enclosed in a protective casing, the skull. Let us now discuss anatomy and physiology of human. The word anatomy has Greek origin. A literal translation would be a cutting open. Anatomy is the study of internal and external structures of the body and the physical relationships among body parts. For example, studying how a particular muscle attaches to the skeleton, while physiology, which also has Greek origin, is the study of how organisms perform their vital functions. Relationship between anatomy and physiology. Anatomy and physiology are closely integrated both theoretically and practically. Anatomical information provides clues about probable functions, and physiological mechanism can be explained only in terms of the underlying anatomy. This observation leads to a very important concept. All specific functions are performed by specific structures. Anatomists and physiologists approach the relationship between structure and function from different perspectives. Divisions of anatomy. Anatomy can be divided into different specialties based on degree of structural detail under consideration, specific processes, medical application. On the basis of structural detail, we have microscopic anatomy, gross, microscopic anatomy. Microscopic anatomy. Microscopic anatomy deals with structures that cannot be seen without magnification. The limits of the equipments used determine the boundaries of microscopic anatomy. Gross anatomy, microscopic anatomy. It is the examination of relatively large structures and features usually visible with the unaided eye. There are many ways to approach a gross anatomy. Surface anatomy, study of general form and superficial markings. Regional anatomy focuses on anatomical organizational of specific areas of the body, such as the head, neck, or trunk. Systematic anatomy, study of the structure of organ systems, such as the skeleton system or the muscular system. Organ systems are groups of organs that function together in a coordinate manner. Developmental anatomy. This deals with the changes in form that occurs during the period between conception and physical maturity. The study of these early developmental processes is called embryology. Divisions of physiology. Physiology is the study of the function of anatomical structure. Human physiology is the study of the functions of the human body. These functions are complex and much more difficult to examine than most anatomical structures. As a result, there are even more specialties in physiology than in anatomy, which includes cell physiology. This is the cornerstone of human physiology. It is a study of the functions of cells. It deals with events at the chemical and molecular levels. Special physiology. This is a study of the physiology of special organs. For example, renal physiology is a study of kidney functions. Systematic physiology. It includes all aspects of the function of specific organ system. Cardiovascular physiology, respiratory physiology, and reproductive physiology are examples of systematic physiology. Pathophysiology. It is the study of the effects of diseases on organ or system functions. Pathos is the Greek word for disease. Modern medicine depends on an understanding of both normal physiology and pathophysiology. Let us now discuss level of organization. The organization of human part are given follows. The chemical or molecular level. Atoms, the smallest stable units of matter, can combine to form molecules with complex shapes. Even at the simplest level, the specialized shape of a molecule determines its function. The cellular level. Molecules can interact to form organelles such as the protein filaments found in muscle cells. Each type of organelle has specific functions. The tissue level. A tissue is a group of cells working together to perform one or more specific functions. Heart muscle cells or cardiac muscle cells interact with other cell types and with extracellular materials to form muscle tissue. The organ level. Organs consist of two or more tissues working in combination to perform several functions. Layers of cardiac muscles tissue in combination with connective tissue, another tissue type, form the bulk of the wall of the heart, a hollow, three-dimensional organ. The organ system level. Organs interact in organ system. Each time it contracts, the heart pushes blood into a network of blood vessels. Together, the heart, blood and blood vessels form the cardiovascular system, one of 11 organ systems of the body. The organism level. All organ systems of the body work together to maintain life and health. This brings us to the highest level of organization, that of the organism, in this case, a human being. Interrelationships between the levels of organization. The organization at each level determines the characteristic and functions of higher levels. The heart is filled with blood and connected to the blood vessels, and the pumping action circulates to the blood vessels of the cardiovascular system. By interacting with the respiratory, digestive, urinary, and other systems, the cardiovascular system performs a variety of functions essential to the survival of the organism. Organ systems in the body. These organ systems are interdependent, interconnected, and packaged together in a relatively small space. The cells, tissues, organs, and organ systems of the body live together in a shared environment like the inhabitants of a large city. Just as city dwellers breathe the city air and drink the water provided by the local water company, cells in the human body absorb oxygen and nutrients from the fluids that surround them. If a city is blanketed in smoke or its water supply is contaminated, the inhabitants will become ill. Homeostasis, homeo, unchanging, plus stasis, standing, refers to the existing of a stable internal environment. To survive, every organism must maintain homeostasis. Types of organic proteins. Anchoring proteins. Membrane proteins are called anchoring proteins attach the cell membrane to other structures and stabilize its position. Recognition proteins identifiers. The cells of the immune system recognize other cells as normal or abnormal on the basis of the presence or absence of characteristic recognition proteins. Many important recognition proteins are glycoprotein. Enzymes. Enzyme in cell membranes may be integral or peripheral proteins. In an enzymatic reaction, the molecules at the beginning of the processes are called substrate and the enzymes convert them to different molecules called the products. Receptor proteins. They are present in the cell membrane and are sensitive to the presence of specific extracellular molecules called ligands. A receptor protein exposed to an appropriate ligand will bind to it, and that binding may trigger changes in the activity of the cell. Carrier proteins. These bind to solutes and transport them across the cell membrane. The transport process involves a change in the shape of the carrier protein. The shape changes when solid binding occurs and the protein returns to its original shape when the solid is released. Carrier proteins may require ATP as an energy source. Channels. Some integral proteins contain a central pore or channel that forms a passageway. The channel permits the movement of water and small solutes across the cell membrane. Ions do not dissolve in lipids, so they cannot cross the phospholipid bilayer. Types of channels. Physiologists speak of sodium channels, calcium channels, potassium channels, and so forth when referring to channels that permit the movement of only specific ions. There are two major kinds of channels: leak channels, which permit water and ion movement times, although the rate can vary, and gated channels, which open or close to regulate ion passage. Channels account for about 0.2% of the total membrane surface area. Membrane carbohydrates. Carbohydrates account for roughly 3% of the weight of a cell membrane. The carbohydrates in the cell membrane are components of complex molecules such as proteoglycan, glycoproteins, and glycolipids. The carbohydrate proteins of these large molecules extend beyond the outer surface of the membrane, forming a layer known as the glycocallus. The glycocallus has a variety of important functions, including the following: lubrication and protection. The glycoproteins and glycolipids form a viscous layers that lubricate and protects the cell membrane. Anchoring and locomotion. Because the components are sticky, the glycocallus can help anchor the cell in place. It also participates in the locomotion of specialized cells. Specificity in binding. Glycoprotein and glycolipids can function as receptors binding specific extracellular compounds. Such binding can alter the properties of the cell surface and indirectly affect the cell's behavior. Let us now discuss hematology. Hematology is a science that deals with the nature, functions, and disease of blood and blood-forming tissues. Blood is a fluid that circulates throughout the body via the arteries and the veins, providing vehicles through which different substances are transferred between the various organs and tissues. Characteristic of blood. Blood cells are made up of red blood cells, erythrocytes, white blood cells, leukocytes, platelets, red blood cells, erythrocytes. 1 cubic millimeter of blood contains about 5 million red blood cells. They are circular, biconcave discs without nuclei. They are located or found in the bone marrow after birth. It has average lifespan of about 120 days. It contains hemoglobin and is responsible for the transport of oxygen in the blood. They give the blood its characteristic red color. White blood cells. White blood cells have nuclei but no pigment. They produce antitoxin to neutralize bacteria toxin. In the embryo, they are manufactured in the liver and the spleen. In the adult, they are formed in the bone marrow, spleen and lymphatic glands. They have a very short lifespan. 1 cubic millimeter of blood contains about 7,000 white blood cells WBC. They are larger than red blood cells in size. Blood platelets. They are tiny irregular cells fragments which are non-nucleated. They may be round or oval in shape. They are concerned with clotting. Soluble components of blood. Serum, liquid portion without clotting factors. Plasma, liquid portion plus clotting factors. Plasma is a pale yellow liquid made up mainly of water. Many substances that are dissolved in it, including plasma proteins, antibodies, enzymes, gases, salts, digested food materials and waste materials. The main function of the plasma is to transport these substances that are dissolved in it. Plasma contains many sorts of proteins including albumins, globulins, clotting factors, complement as well as electrolytes and hormones. Blood group. We have 4 distinct blood groups, namely blood group A, blood group B, blood group AB and blood group O. This depends on the antigens and antibodies that are present in the blood. Antigens are foreign agents which cause lymphocyte or white blood cell to produce antibodies, example, invading microorganism. There are 2 types of antigen, antigen A and antigen B. Antibodies protect the body from the harmful effects of disease-causing microorganism. They give immunity against disease. Clumping of red blood cells is called agglutination, caused by the reaction of either antigen. Group O receive blood from group O only, donates blood to any recipients. They are called universal donor. Group B, person with blood group B can only receive blood from B and O. Group A receive blood from O and A. Group AB can only donate to AB. Receive small quantity of blood from the entire group. Large quantity of mismatch blood can result to agglutination. Rhesus factors. Rhesus factors determine the positivity and negativity of the blood. Rhesus positive Rh plus if the blood has this factor. Rhesus negative Rh minus if the blood does not have this factor. Homeostasis. This is basically the prevention of blood loss. The stages are contraction of the vessel, formation of platelet plaque, blood coagulation, growth of fibrous tissue into the blood clot to permanently close the vessel.
Blood groups. Blood group is the system of classification of blood according to the different antigens on the surface of the red blood cells and the antibodies in the blood. The 2 main blood grouping systems are ABO system and Rhesus system. Hodgkin's lymphoma. Hodgkin's lymphoma is a cancer of the immune system that affects the lymph nodes, spleen, liver, bone marrow, and other immune tissues. It affects the B cells, antibody-producing cells, and is characterized by the presence of cancer cells known as Reed-Sternberg cells. Painless enlargement of lymph nodes is the prominent symptom of Hodgkin's lymphoma. Other symptoms observed include fever, weight loss, fatigue, and night sweats. Thrombocytopenia. Thrombocytopenia refers to abnormally low level of platelets, the blood cells that are important for clot formation. Thrombocytopenia leads to abnormal bleeding because of low production of platelets in certain conditions, such as aplastic anemia, bone marrow cancer, cirrhosis, and folate deficiency. Thrombocytopenia also occurs due to increased destruction of platelets in blood, spleen, or liver.
Integumentary system. The integumentary system consists of the skin, which is the largest organ of the body. Alteration in the skin will affect the overall well-being of an individual. The skin is a highly underestimated organ. Anatomy of the skin. The skin is an organ because it consists of different tissues that are joined to perform specific activities. It is one of the largest organs of the body in surface area and weight. In adults, the skin covers an area of about 2 square meters and weighs 4.5 to 5 kg. It ranges in thickness from 0.5 to 4.0 mm depending on location. The skin is not just a simple thin coat that keeps the body together and provides protection. Functions of the skin. Regulation of body temperature. It responds to high environmental temperature or strenuous exercise. The evaporation of sweat from the skin surface helps lower an elevated body temperature to normal. Protection. The skin covers the body and provides a physical barrier that protects underlying tissues from shocks, physical aberration, bacterial invasion, dehydration, and ultraviolet UV radiation. Hair and nails also have protection function. Sensation. The skin contains abundant nerve endings and receptors that detect stimuli related to temperature, touch, pressure, and pain and relay the information to the nervous system. Excretion. Besides removing heat and some water from the body, sweat also is the vehicle for excretion of a small amount of salts and several organic compounds by integumentary glands. Storage of nutrients. Lipids are stored in adiposity in the dermis and in adipose tissue in the subcutaneous layer. These are made available to the body when there is depletion, which may be due to starvation. Blood reservoir. The dermis of the skin houses extensive networks of blood vessels that carry 8 to 10% of the total blood flow in a resting adult. Synthesis of vitamin D. Vitamin D is a group of closely related compounds. Synthesis of vitamin D begins with activation of a precursor molecule in the skin by ultraviolet UV rays in sunlight. Enzymes in the liver and kidneys then modify the molecule, finally producing calcitriol, the most active form of vitamin D. Epidermis. The epidermis is composed of stratified squamous epithelium. It contains 4 principal types of cells. Keratinocytes. About 90% of the epidermal cells are keratinocytes. They produce a protein keratin that helps waterproof and protect the skin and underlying tissues. Melanocytes. They produce the pigment melanin, which comprise about 8% of the epidermal cells. Their long, slender projection extend between and transfer granules of melanin to keratinocytes. Melanin equal to black, is a black pigment that contributes to skin color and absorb ultraviolet UV light. Langerhans. These are the third type of cell in the epidermis. These cells arise from bone marrow and migrate to the epidermis. They interact with the white blood cells called helper T cells in immune responses and are easily damaged by UV radiation. Dermis. The second principal part of the skin, the dermis, is composed of connective tissue containing collagen and elastic fibers. The few cells in the dermis include fibroblasts, macrophages, and adipocytes. The dermis is very thick in the palms and soles and very thin in the eyelid, penis, and scrotum. It also tends to be thicker on the dorsal than the ventral aspect of the body and thicker on the lateral than the medial aspect of the extremities. Blood vessels, nerves, glands, and hair follicles are embedded in the dermis. The outer portion of the dermis, about 1/5 of the thickness of the total layer, is named the papillary region layer. It consists of areola, connective tissue containing and elastic fibers. Now in the end, let us summarize what we have learned in this lecture. Anatomy and physiology are closely integrated both theoretically and practically. Anatomical information provides clues about probable functions, and physiological mechanism can be explained only in terms of the underlying anatomy. Cytology is the analysis of the structure of individual cells, the simplest units of life. Enzymes are extremely selective for their substrates and speed up only a few reactions from among the many possibilities, the set of enzymes present in a cell which determine which metabolic pathways occurred in that cell. The integumentary system consists of the skin, which is the largest organ of the body. A tissue is a group of cells working together to perform one or more specific functions.